G'day, mate. What's your name?
My name is Freddie McManus. I'm a comedian, and if you count non-speaking roles, an actor. One of the greatest.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Crowdworkcast. My name's Andrew Barnett. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, my guest today is Freddie McManus, comedian, welding supply, marketer, and proclaimed dual citizen. He says he's a dual citizen, Australian and English, but you go to the cricket with him, he's much more English. So make of that what you will. Very funny guy. This was a really fun chat. If you enjoy Freddie, you can follow him on Instagram. He is at Freddie McManus. If you'd like to go see him live doing his stand-up comedy, he is going to be at the Melbourne Comedy Festival and the Sydney Comedy Festival. His show is called Remind Me Later in Melbourne. It's at the Catfish in Fitzroy from the 27th of March to the 6th of April. And he'll be at the Wildflower Wine Bar at the Enmore Theatre on May 18 and 19 if you're in Sydney. I don't have any dates to plug at the moment, but if you follow me on Instagram at Andrew Barnett Comedy, you can find where I am gigging locally around or what I'm up to. And if you're enjoying the podcast, do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Other than that, please just enjoy this. This is my episode with Freddie McManus. Non-speaking actor, so like Marcel Marceau type, or
100%. I mean, I've appeared on this podcast before purely as an extra. Just, I'm in the back. You'll find me. I'm lurking.
So, comedian and mute actor, and there's an accent there.
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Let's start with where is the accent?
I knew you'd be like this, man. I knew this would start with explain yourself.
Yeah.
So I am originally from England. I'm a dual citizen. Every time we've seen each other, I've had to show you my passport, the whole bit.
Yep.
But I grew up here when I was little, and then most of my life in the UK, and then it's been 8-9 years back here.
So where in the UK?
Like southeast, like Kent area.
Okay.
Beautiful part of the world. The Garden of England, mate.
The Garden of England.
It's gorgeous.
Kent. I don't know the UK super well. I know I played cricket years ago in Newcastle, and we had some English guys come out one summer and played it for us. And but there was sort of two camps. There was some guys that had some ties to the north of England that were around the club, and then there was some guys, the guys that were from around Hampshire.
Right.
So they were basically the northern guys would just be like, fucking southern fairies.
100%. I was going to ask which ones you liked more, and I would put all my money on it being the northern guys.
Yeah, I was 17. I was just curious about accents and
100%.
loving cricket. But
to be fair, we've been to the cricket together, and given that I've spent a fair bit of time out of here, I feel like my programmed hatred of Australia has sort of mellowed a lot. And so I try to sort of connect with you. I go, ultimately, we all just hate the South Africans, don't we? And you just looked at me, your eyes glazed over and went, absolutely not, never. It's the English always.
This current England side, I am having trouble warming to, not for any other reason. And it's weird because a few years ago, I liked a lot of them as individual players. Like Joe Root's a great player. Like
right.
There's
Alistair
some great
Cook,
players.
hard to be mad at, right?
He looked like a Disney prince, didn't he? That jaw.
I close my eyes, he's right there.
But and we've talked about this at the cricket, and this is usually a comedy podcast, and I'm excited we're going to the cricket early. But just the bullshit marketing around Bazball.
Right.
I don't mind it as a tactic. I don't mind it as like you've said, with the talent they've got on board, this is a good way for them to play cricket. No, it's a smart way for them to play cricket, but the marketing garbage they carry on with it around, like moral victories.
You
we
described
played an entertaining brand of cricket.
You described it as the Trumpification of Test match cricket, which I actually love. Where they go, well, you're 150 for 5 and they got 400. Like, how are we looking? They go, that's fake news.
Yeah,
you're wrong. We could be like Ben Duckett's just inventing wickets we've taken in the press conferences.
Yeah,
he's like, we could have an 8 down. Well, they're 300 for 1, Ben. So
yeah.
How about we think about the wickets you did take or didn't?
A lot of people saying we played well. Really? Who are these people?
Close family members. Mum and Dad.
Yeah.
It is very much that. They just write their narrative to go along with whatever happened on the day.
But then it starts working, and then that's when there's a voodoo to it. Which,
Yeah.
and I realise we're recording this at the moment of a pretty humbling thrashing England have just taken in India.
Yes.
But I'll be honest, mate, through a different lens, I think we won that thing. I mean, morally, I know who's on top. I know that. You know? But yeah, no, it's fascinating. Like, I will say, the devil's advocate is that you're never truly threatened by the Alistair Cooks of the world or the Joe Roots. But when Ben Stokes is around with a sort of bit of a violent past, bit of a maverick, sets weird fields, all of a sudden we're in trouble. An arm sleeve? Did you ever imagine in your life you would see an England Test captain with a full arm sleeve and a bit about it?
Yeah, well, he's a Kiwi, so, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say we've had Kevin Peterson captain England, and I meant, you know, homegrown. He's got a Geordie accent. Surely that's progress from the Peterson days.
One of the jokes I was proudest of when we had our cricket show was we interviewed Chris Jordan and Mitch Marsh.
Brilliant.
And the question I put to Chris Jordan is, I said, in your career, you know, you've played with players from all across the world. Is that the best thing about playing for England? He went to answer and then realised what I was asking and laughed, and he went, "That is very good."
Yeah.
Thank you. He was, yeah.
The empire still lives. If you ask, from a cricketing standpoint, it's alive and well.
Yeah, exactly. You'll never see English people more on board with multiculturalism when they're naming a cricket side.
Yeah, to think that the person with they only have visa issues, the England players, when they go to India, and we have someone with a Pakistani name, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah. We're like, he bleeds the Union Jack.
Yeah.
Like,
what are you talking
Shoaib
about?
Bashir, like, cut him, he bleed. To be fair, he has my accent. I mean,
yes.
It is weird. There is a bit of a pattern there in India where it's like Usman Khawaja goes up with one of the stronger Australian accents I've heard, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, it's a funny thing that I suppose from our point of view, it's like that's not even a tension that you really think about until something like that happens. You're like, oh, that's right. India and Pakistan have got there's a lot of history there that's not super, they're not always best of friends.
And I believe that's what we're going to get into over the course of this podcast. I've blocked out 3 hours.
We start with, the way I do it is I like to start with a bit of cricket, then get into some geopolitics.
Nice.
Then really drill down into some, like, I like to start sort of macro and then get micro. So we start with the geopolitics, obviously.
Beautiful.
Then we'll get a little bit more regional. We'll talk a bit Asia Pacific, Commonwealth, state, and then obviously we'll finish with some local. You live within the Inner West Council area, so
pretty close.
Yeah, I've got the minutes of the Inner West.
And do you know what, mate? Redfern, we don't like him. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it.
Oh, mate. So let's get that timeline down. So you're born here? Born in Australia.
I was born in England, and then when I was like 1, my family moved over here.
Yep.
For around 4 years, and then went back for like 15, 20. And so I'm actually I'm like the southern son of like a northern dad. Like my dad was from Yorkshire.
Oh, so your dad, the Yorkshireman, is looking at you and probably your brother going, oh, Southern Fairy.
100%. It was the name he was considering. He was tossing it up. I think Tinkerbell was number 1. And then he settled for Freddie as a compromise with my mum. But he kind of lost his accent a little bit, like, to the point where I think it was only words like Bath and Castle. So he'd have my voice, and then that A, that vowel sound, that's like the root of the tree, and that's not going anywhere.
That's I had a mate whose mother, she lived here years and had a, for the most part, broad Australian accent, but she was, she was from the UK, and she used to, Cardiff was one of them, and Bath, she was always saying Bath. And but it was only certain words, and you go, well, what's going on with your mum, Scotty? You go, oh yeah, she's not from here.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then you've got to confront the mum. I think we all did at some point. Snap out of it. I'd
talk properly.
100%. I'd be 7 with my sort of cut glass, received pronunciation, being like, Dad, you're a bum. Figure it out. I was trying to drag him into English classes with me at school, being like, sit in on this one. I reckon maybe.
So what brought the family out here originally?
My dad's work, I believe. Well, that's my understanding. I don't know why I'm making it mysterious. I think it was always that simple as well. It was never like, we need a cultural shift. It's like, they're moving here, and so we have to move.
So what did your dad do?
He was like a management consultant, which I never really asked any follow-ups. And we used to
almost
make
the
fun of
perfect job to drop if you don't want follow-ups, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the reply, you go, what does that mean? Back off, you'd hear
Yeah.
pretty quickly. But yeah, we used to make fun of it constantly because it had no meaning to us as children. And just being like, he's like, what do you want to do? It's like, well, whatever you do, not that, because it just sounds rough as guts. And then my sister, like, who has all the degrees under the sun, like, went to Oxford for her undergrad and then, like, Cambridge for like her postgrad, and she was studying like biomedicine, and now she is a management consultant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just kind of made her way all the way back.
I thought you were going to say she went to Oxford and then Cambridge, so then she did a one-person show up at Edinburgh.
Yeah, exactly.
Now works at the BBC.
She has more comedy credits than I could even dream of. Just by that education, they just pluck her out. Like, hates the camera, but has been on it constantly for the last 10 years. So it's been the bedrock of the BBC. I think she delivers the news now, but it's just her at a train station. They just sneak a camera in. It's like a camera phone in. Whatever she says, that is the news of the day. Yeah, rough.
So you went back. So when did did the family move back, or did you move back on your own?
Like, it's been explained to me that when I tell like the timeline of it, it kind of sounds like my family don't like me very much.
Okay.
Because when I went to uni in Exeter, they moved out again for Dad's work. Yep. They went to Australia, and so for my like 3-year degree, I would just visit them like in the holidays out in Australia. And then when I graduated uni, I was like, I don't really have much family in England anymore. I'll go and see the family in Australia. And within 3 months, they packed up and moved back.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, do you want to come with us? I was like, I kind of just got here. I thought I had a job at that point, and it's like, well, it kind of feels like they're running for the hills. Like,
were they like, do you want to come with us? Or like, were they like, you don't want to come with us, did you?
Look, I mean, you called it out. I made that up. You've called out the fact that I've clearly fabricated that conversation. I was just rocking back and forth in the empty apartment. But yeah, no. So they moved back out. And then I always thought, like, I told my friends in the UK that I'd be back in like 6 weeks. And it's been like 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's because every year it becomes harder. Like, you set new things up, and before you know it, there's an open mic on Thursday I'm interested in going to. Like,
yeah,
I've got to do the podcast with Barney. Mate. My sister's had a baby. I go, mate, I'll see how the pod goes. You know, it's tough.
And look, there's a sign up after this that you can go do.
There is, and it's just in front of you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just hop up.
But I still pull the names out of a hat for just for effect.
I do feel like this studio could be used for like many things. Like, I felt like I was going to film an apology when I first sat down, like just the posture you're in.
Just look down that camera.
But this is like R. Kelly on Good Morning America kind of things. There goes, but God could I sing? Hey,
that's R. Kelly. That's just the smell of this place where there's a dog in here. So I don't think that's human urine.
Oh, unbelievable. You've got a few of his platinum albums on the walls as well. I noticed that.
Big fan.
Hey, mate.
It's
you too believed once that you could fly.
you got to separate the art from the man.
That is the beautiful thing as well. Like, you grow up with like the fable of Icarus, like flying too close to the sun. If you could pick a music artist based on like their catalog alone, of someone who was just daring people to take him down.
Have you seen the YouTube? I've only ever watched it on YouTube. Real Talk, him doing the song Real Talk.
I haven't, but I think. Remind me.
It's amazing, and if you are listening to this, pause it, go watch it, come back, because it's worth doing that. Basically, it's him in studio just doing real talk, and it's like that's him. And then he's going through this sort of, I mean, it's hard to explain without, but he's going through like talking through, real talk. He's like, it's written like a chat to a partner.
Sure.
But she's not obviously able to respond because it's one way. He's in the
That's
studio,
the way he likes
she's
it.
not there.
That's the way he likes it.
But then he starts to, like, it's almost like, I think in the YouTube at the part, he's on the phone in parts, like he's talking to her. And then he starts to respond like she's saying stuff, and he gets real angry. Yeah, whoa, what about this? What about, like, he's really getting, and then he just goes, real talk. And like it's the most unhinged, and it finishes with a bit of a fight in the studio with another guy. Like,
do you mind if I throw in a few of those throughout this? Like, if I say something particularly poignant,
just look down the camera, look down the barrel of the camera,
and I'll sing it too. I'm not afraid.
Yeah, get in there.
I'm not afraid. That's like the end of like 8 Mile, where Eminem decides like the best way to approach what people have been saying about him is to say, I am white. I am a fucking bum. Like, I do live in a trailer with my mum. Like,
Yeah.
there are recordings of R. Kelly in the studio and being like, what if I address it in the song? And you just, clearly he's not good with like body language singles because all the guys in the booth are like, no.
Well, yeah, I think that's what starts the fight at the end of the film clip.
Oh my God.
We will do yourself a favor. When we finish this, have a look at it. It will change your life.
We could recreate it, mate. If you say any other anti-English slurs that you've been lining up.
Hey, real talk, man. Real talk.
Real talk.
So what did you do at uni?
I studied English literature.
Oh yeah, so Australia's the natural place for you to end up working then.
I think I don't know, obviously, because I've spent like my whole adult life here, but my understanding going into that was that there would be like jobs out there for me in England with that degree that weren't English teacher.
Yeah.
And then you move here and it's like, that is not what you're walking into. Because if you want to do like marketing in England, you can kind of have done anything in a way. Like you read a bit of poetry, come there with like a collared shirt and you're in the mix for marketing.
Yeah.
Australia, it's like, did you do a marketing degree? And if you haven't, I mean, that was as far as the interviews got early doors. Like, God damn it. Could have told me this 3 years ago. Like, came here to escape the student debt, and now here I am with like consequences of a different kind.
So is that what you do now? Is that what the job you picked up was in marketing? Or was that the aim?
Yeah, for a welding helmet company, unnamed, I would say. But you have, like, if you're in the welding industry, you have received emails from me.
Is it one of the big 3 welding helmet companies? Wow.
That, for the benefit of the listener, that was a pretty, like, loaded knot I just gave. And a bit of a wink. As if to say, we sort of run the gamut. We kind of run the game. You hear, like, this would be huge. If I wasn't sort of anonymous in my welding capacity here, like, it's a pretty big get for the pod. I would argue it's a bigger get from a welding standpoint than it is from a comedy one to have me here. Like, whoa.
We do have a lot of welding enthusiasts who listen. I think,
stay protected, fellas. Respiratory protection is important.
Sorry, welding enthusiasts, not people who weld. People who just enjoy it.
People who have commissioned welders to like do their staircase.
People who enjoy a nicely welded joint.
Oh yeah. And honestly, like someone who does weld, you can't catch a ferry with them because all they're doing is just looking at the welds around the ship. And to be honest, like the Manly Fast Ferry, like you haven't got enough time to get to them all. So they're like, it's like a game show. They're sprinting around. We've lost some men overboard. We've lost some good men because they just want to make sure it's structurally sound, you know?
Yes, which is, you know, a good welding goes underappreciated unless you know what you're looking for. That's the main thing. So we're talking arc welding or...
Yeah, kind of all of them, you know, MIG, TIG, the heavy duty stuff. Stick welding.
Stick welding.
We saw, what was it like, Melbourne Polytechnic, well, maybe shouldn't, who gives a shit? Melbourne Polytechnic, like on their website for their welding course, the sort of stock image they have of a welder, he's stick welding, which is like, obviously, gets pretty fucking hot, and the guy's wearing no gloves.
Oh, wow.
This is for like 15-year-olds, like, looking to get into the trade. And it looks like you're just seeing a still of a man like dying. Like, you know when the Buddhists were like burning themselves in Tiananmen Square? Like, kind of looks like that and be like, oh, I'll sign up for MEM 30305. I'll do it.
That
what a course.
Hey, get one of the junior graphic designers to just whip up a welding image for us.
I mean, I emailed them immediately. I go, guys, I have many application shots with a jacket, a proper, you know, a respirator, where safety is paramount. It's front and center because we've done... I think once on Facebook, we posted something where someone wasn't wearing something quite correctly. And if you want to like awaken the beast that is fellas who still take Facebook seriously, like when you've been talking about PPE like all year, and then you post something that's even slightly not up to code, like they'll get you.
Really?
And not just like in the comments, like they're messaging the page being like,
really?
You fucked up, cunt.
That's because one of the fascinating things about the internet is there are all these not subcultures, but yeah, subcultures that exist on the, like there's a whole Twitter that exists for all different subcultures. Right. The idea that there's a welding Facebook just really, that makes me
And the numbers are staggering. I reckon you could sway an election like, you know how in 2016 they kind of locked into the people they wanted? Like there's a base there, and I'll say it, green living, they don't love it. So every environmental move that Albo has done, we had a guy, we ran a giveaway, right? And so I would like to think I set out the rules of that giveaway pretty clearly. Fill out the entry form, and you have a chance to win.
Okay. It's not very.
We had
they're not complicated.
We had a maverick, if you
Yep.
will, someone who kind of wishes to change the game as opposed to sort of an R. Kelly of the welding game.
Yeah.
You know, he's real talk. This guy was doing it different. He decides instead to just share the post about the giveaway every day onto his personal Facebook page, without fail.
Right.
Every day, and sometimes multiple times a day. God. And we kept checking to see if he'd actually applied.
I would like.
Never did.
I would like to be friends with this guy on
Mate,
Facebook.
I'll give you his name afterwards, because I will say there are some scalding hot political takes on there as well. So it's just our giveaway, some not great immigration opinions. Then our giveaway. We were like, thank God this guy has 7 friends, because otherwise this would be awful for the brand. This would be absolutely horrific. And then like it's him like being like, he's photoshopped a black eye onto Albanese. I'm like, it's actually pretty impressive work. Like, he's interning for us now. But
it's amazing too the skills that some people do and don't have.
Right.
He doesn't have the skill to know how to enter the competition properly, but has taken the time to learn how to do some basic photoshopping. So that he can post a pic of Alba.
You make a great point, but what I would contend is this: when he's failing to apply for the giveaway properly, he's thinking with his head. When he's going after Albanese and trying to Photoshop that black eye, that's his heart talk.
So you're thinking,
and the heart will always lead you on the right path. So he has no Photoshop skills, no formal training, but when the heart wants a black eye on that man's face, the hands just start moving. The body at that point is just a vessel. And so that's what I would say. But yeah, I mean, obviously he didn't win. He never really applied, but our eyes are on it. Like sometimes when people are a bit of a pest, a bit of a nuisance, you go like, kind of block them for the page. Like that's not best practice, but that's what we tend to do.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was like the whole department like had a meeting about it. Like, what do we do? Like, let him do it. He's not hurting us.
So there's a department that manage a Facebook page for a welding.
Only that week was it really dialed into the Facebook activity. Yeah. Everything else like fell by the wayside.
So what's it like? This also fascinates me too. That when Mark Zuckerberg started the Facebook as it was back then, so people could catch up. The idea that there would be jobs for people to run Facebook pages for welding companies.
Yeah.
We're living in Black Mirror as far as I'm concerned.
And make 40,000 followers. I mean, I wish I had that in my own personal life and career.
So
imagine this podcast with that audience. If I share this podcast on that page, I'll be fired, sure. But I know who's sharing. I've got one share,
but
multiple times a day. So that's a lock. And then, God knows, we throw in a bit of elbow chat towards the end here. Get geopolitical as we promised.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you got an army at your back, Bob.
So when I bought these beers, there is now an Albanese Pale Ale that one of the beer companies has put out.
Nice.
Which I don't know how I feel about that, because part of me, and I've said this in another episode, part of me thinks that we shouldn't, like, one thing to have Hawks, Bob Hawke, because he's passed. He's a past prime minister. We can look back with rose-coloured glasses and forget all the stuff people didn't like then and just go, life was better then.
Sure.
Must have been Hawkey. So you can be nostalgic. You can't be nostalgic in the present it's very un-Australian to do anything to like whatever prime minister we've got.
I'll be honest, mate. Try launching like an Obama Patron and see how it goes down in the US. I think it's pretty worldwide. Like I'm trying to think in my head now, like what it would be in the UK. It would be like a David Cameron sherry or something. Like I'll say it. It'll be mostly urine. It'd be absolute like garbage. I got like messages from people because I'll be brutally honest, I'm not especially political in this country, and I never was really when I was in the UK in terms of like locked into everything necessarily.
Yeah.
But there are some names where you know what they did, where it kind of hits the mainstream and be like, oh, that's why we kind of don't go around that guy. And obviously Cameron's main thing was like Brexit. He basically leveraged that referendum to get elected. So he said, if I get elected, then I'll do this referendum people have wanted for ages. And then he won for that reason, runs the referendum. It doesn't go the way he wants, and then he just goes, oh, see ya. Like, he just left.
Isn't he back now?
And this is the thing. So I got messages, and I was never a pro wrestling guy, but I kind of was that morning when I get a message going, David Cameron's back. I'm like, I heard like the John Cena music. I don't even know what that music is, but I kind of felt it, bro. I was like, you're kidding. And honestly, like, he's waddling back into number 10 Downing Street, And even like the newscasters are kind of shitting on him, being like, oh, he's put weight on, like while he was gone. Like everyone, I think it's more just the surprise they've lost the sheen of professionalism because they were like, we never thought we'd see this gun again.
Yeah.
Like this is genuinely, you feel like the shock. It's kind of like if the Queen just went like, and it's suddenly, yeah. And honestly, I don't put it past her. Like,
Ooh,
I feel like
she was a tough broad.
honestly, I think sort of her voodoo, bad karma, like however she felt about her son, has given him some health issues that we can either talk about or not on this.
Which is, hey, I'm happy to talk about his health issues, but that's the crazy thing is of all of her sons to get the health issues due to bad juju.
You make an outstanding point. Yeah, that had not occurred to me. I would say a Pizza Express pizza or whatever it is Andrew assured was his diet. That must be doing wonders for the immune system.
Yeah.
But then we kind of want Andrew to live for the jail time a little bit. I think there's part of us where it's like death is the easy way out for Andrew. You kind of want you want the repercussions to be...
I like the idea too that even if it never gets to, because I don't know that that'll ever get to jail time realistically, but...
And I think we're in a very good position to ascertain whether it will, again, with our experience. And
yeah, no, it's just like, it's one of those things where like, yes, you know, this different jurisdictions, he's still, you know, a royal in Britain. They're not just gonna ship him off necessarily to go sit in.
Well, that's what he liked, mate. The islands, the islands
Well,
are
he does.
shoved off. Ship him off. Everyone's like, stay off our shores. Jesus Christ.
Oh, we got an island for you. It's called Rikers Island.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, there's some young people here, but they're not the kind you like.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but yeah, even if it doesn't get to jail time, like the humiliation of having to live the way and without any of the stuff he
Right, because he was already kind of shunted into the... You could clearly sense he was like fighting against just not being an important member of that family, which clearly like really fucks with people because Harry's gone a little bit like...
a little bit.
Do you know what I mean? So it's clearly something where, what do they call it? Like the heir and the spare. And for you or I, I've just described my sister's academic record, and I can show you her bank balance if you want, but both of those things should make me feel like the spare with where I'm at right now. And yet here I am, smile at my face. I'm just fine. I'm calling her after this, probably.
But we're
going to have a chat. But there's something about it where it's like, I'm never going to touch the scepter. I'm never going to sort of...
I think because doing open mic comedy isn't open to the spare, the royal family. Like, I don't know, it probably would be.
You make a fantastic point.
Do you know what I mean?
When Harry attempted comedy, I think he was wearing a Hitler uniform at a fancy dress party.
Yeah.
I think that was the closest he got to being an open micer, like in terms of sensibility. I mean, I've seen something similar at an open mic, I'll be honest. I think he'd fit right in. Yeah. most of the gigs I started at, I honestly think he'd be headlining with that kind of behavior. It's funny how on The Crown, like, I don't know, I watched it more as like a comedy, that show, especially towards the end when they're talking about things that you lived through. Yeah. They're like, oh, you suddenly went back and realized that's what they were doing the whole time, is kind of just making it up.
Yeah, the early series was good because you were like, oh.
No one was any the wiser.
I had no idea about this.
Right. And now you're like, oh, they're just doing whatever they really want to do. But they did make that a part of the show, which I thought was, like timely, because clearly the guy who runs it is you have to be a royalist, right? To be like the showrunner of The Crown, like the guy whose idea it is.
Interested in.
Right. And so clearly, he hasn't taken kindly to Harry being like, oh, my family, you know, they're completely intolerant, they're an absolute disaster, they're a disgrace, it's a wonder I got out alive. He's just like sliding in the last season of the series that they know people are going to watch with all the Diana stuff, just slides the receipt across the table being like, there you go, Hazard. What do you think of that? They like zoom in on the swastika. It's pretty much your move, man. Like,
yeah.
Because wasn't Harry like working on TV shows and stuff like that went away? Like,
yeah, but they got a mad podcast deal too.
Oh, dude, I listened to Bill Simmons' podcast. He's like and talks about basketball a bunch. Like he's kind of got a huge Spotify deal, and so he was. I think he partly works. He has his own company, but he partly works for Spotify. He went off on his podcast where he goes, "They're the most entitled pricks I've ever met." Where they wanted the money up front. He was like, "We got conned." He was like, "We kind of got frisked, like, and they took us for everything we had, and then created nothing of substance."
Well, that's the thing. That podcast, I don't even know how many episodes came out, but I remember that.
I was meant to be on the one after. They cancelled it just before I was meant to be on.
Lucky, no wonder you were so keen to do this.
Man, I've been absolutely chomping at the bit for 7 months And thinking, yes, I thought I'd be looking at the lady from Suits right now, but you've been on Fox Sports. I mean, your move, Megan, Who's her NRL team? Who cares?
So you do you have an NRL team?
I do. I do support, I bleed green. I support the Canberra Raiders. It is purely because, I lived with a guy who, him and his girlfriend and his whole family, are big Raiders people. I went to Canberra, I met his nephews. We're doing the clap and the stands. I go, this is...
Oh, wow.
It was that simple. This is our team. I pay attention to no off-season stuff, and I'm flaky with on-season stuff. But I have a jersey, a retro jersey, and every year I got the Video Easy.
Video Easy?
Yeah, so it's from the year I was born, I think, 94. And
Jesus, you're young.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate you saying that. Turning 30 this year, so I actually really needed to hear that. Hey, mate, I really appreciate it. Real talk. I really appreciate it. But I would I just get inches away from people's foreheads and go, it's our year, every time when the season starts. And then I'm, depending on whether it is our year or close to being our year, that's how engaged I am. So I'm not going to act like I'm more so.
There's a shorthand around rugby league you can get away with that sort of stuff. There's I think cricket's similar. There's a few... With sport, there's a few phrases with any given sport that you drop into conversation. They sound like you know enough that you know what you're talking about.
It just seems like the other boys want it more. Yeah. You know what I mean? Kind of feels like our guys just need to lock into why they're here and why they do this.
Oh, mate, just the Raiders, hey? Yeah. No wonder they call them the Faders.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, there's something like that.
You're speaking my language, right? You're preaching to the choir. Unbelievable.
God, let's hope Ricky hasn't lost the dressing.
Oh, you find out things about the team after you start supporting them. So finding out our coach is an absolute psycho who screams at them and surprises them with the freakouts. I'm like, inject this directly into my veins. Take every coin I have. I'm all in. I love that.
He's one of the great rugby league psychos.
Sits outside.
Yeah, he sits outside
during the game.
He'll yell at camera people that get in his way on the sideline. He's just...
Because I never got Sir Alex Ferguson with football, as in I was a Liverpool fan, and obviously that was the arch enemy and they were winning everything. So I just hated him my entire life. But if I'd supported that team, I would have loved the carry-on, where he used to just ban media members because they said something about him that may well have been completely true and well-sourced. He'd be like, you're never coming in for one of these again. And then it would just happen.
So good.
And everyone's like, he's the greatest manager ever. You've got to respect his wishes. He was also 79. How old can Ricky scream at guys? I have a 96-year-old grandfather. I guarantee you, Ricky's going to be at that decibel level, deep into his 90s.
Well, with Sir Alex, it's the thing. You got to respect a guy who's spent a lot of his life in Manchester and still got knighted.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Unbelievable.
That never happens.
Yeah, I mean, I love how royal this episode is. We can't avoid it.
Mate, with that accent, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk to you about?
Yeah, that's very true. It's quite a sort of humbling, sobering thing for me. Is pretty much every podcast I've been on this year has opened with royal news of some sort.
Really?
I found out King Charles had cancer on a podcast this week.
Wow.
I was on one and someone said, oh, we got to have your take on this. I go, on what? What are you talking about? Is Diana back? That's the sort of... I need a big swing. Old man is unwell. Wasn't enough to get me back in the soap opera. There's the royal family. But if, they bring back Lady Di, take me away. I mean, God forbid.
Because I don't know what you're supposed to do with that cancer news either. You're not an oncologist, unless I've missed something in your bio.
I mean, when it comes to royal, we only really understand the royal body. This is the schooling system, which obviously predominantly in the UK. I know what that guy's organs look like. We get an update every year, so you know how the Queen does the speech.
Yep.
That includes a bit of a checkup.
Yep.
Just on all her kids. So she used to say when I was a kid, oh, Andrew's sort of watching some pretty weird stuff. And we didn't think much of it at the time. It was just oh, it's good to hear, Andrew's around.
Scallywag.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly at the time. And then Charles was sort of playing a lot of polo for a bit, and now he has polio. I don't know. It's all happening. And I honestly think that is the way it's going to transition. Where if they get a new regime in, they're going to try and make, because I think that's what Charles wanted to do. When he thought he was going to be king 40 years ago, is modernize it and make it cool. He'd go on the radio and be like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they're going to try and do that now, and that is when the riots will start. That's when the monarchy will fall apart, when they try and make it like, when they connect with the young people, we hate them. So I think it's over there.
See, but I think you're supposed to hate royalty when you're young. I think it's mostly, this is my take on it, is it's a lot to do with nostalgia.
Right.
So it's to do with a constancy that people have. And it's probably why you can get away with stuff in the UK in terms of change. There's some stuff that you can deal with change better in the UK because there is this sense of constancy, which frustrates the youth because they're like, nothing's changing, look at this monarchy.
Right.
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff changing quietly where the people who are resistant to change have this safety blanket of, oh, well, we've still got our royals.
Right.
Where you look at the US, where they don't have any sense of constancy at the moment, and it is a shit fight.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just...
And they're trying to get, that's why their presidential candidates are like so elderly, because they're trying to get a bit of a royal vibe in there. It's like someone charismatic shows up in their 40s and they're like, no, I want you to kind of like sort of waddle around and kind of be unsteady on your feet. Like, that's someone I respect. Well, that's a great take, because now I'm like understanding, because my mum was upset when the Queen died, because she was like, there's always been a Queen, like my whole life. She has been the Queen my entire life. And so she was like, you confront your own mortality and everything. Like, so it's like a human thing, I understand it. But my mum wasn't like, wonder what the Charles regime's going to look like.
Yeah, no. But that's the thing, like it is that sense of like, especially with the Queen, because she'd been Queen for so long, like that was most people's their entire life. She'd just been the Queen, like, you know what I mean?
I think she was the oldest living person at the time.
Yeah.
I think we'd all sort of.
What'd she get? She
was the largest Russian doll at the time. It was like, took that one off.
Because she'd been there an insane amount of time. So like, I think, was it 70 years she was on the throne?
Yeah.
So that realistically, anyone under 70, and well, you get to 75 probably, only remembers her.
Right.
Because you're not really remembering, you're not, under 5, you're not clocked to, oh yeah, so sorry, who's our head of state? But that's like, so that level of constancy. But yeah, this could see, like if he goes quick, there could be some a lot of Poms not knowing what to make of themselves.
Well, I just realised now, I met King Charles when I was a kid. We used to have our assembly, because our like primary school was so small, we used to have our assemblies in the Buddhist Vihara, and it was one of the very few ones in England at the time, which is like their place of worship. So there's all the monks there sort of hanging out. And because it was kind of a notable thing, it was probably the only one in London. Don't fact check that.
At the time.
Charles and Camilla showed up, and they showed up to sort of meet the monks and the whole bit, but they kind of got the timing wrong. So whatever, yeah.
So you're young enough to have been at school when Camilla was allowed to go out in public with Charles?
Yes.
That's, wow. Because
Diana died when I was 3.
I was going to say, in my head, she hasn't been, like, it hasn't been, publicly together that long.
She's still with
us. She has.
She's still with us, though, Di. I mean,
my God.
The princess. So that's what it was. There was very clearly a presence in the room other than Charles and Camilla. There was still a third wheel there, spiritually.
I feel like there's them over there, but our people, we're the people. I feel like there's a people's princess.
Oh, there was definitely. It may have been a monk. I may have. I didn't have the glasses back then. I was kind of.
Maybe she reincarnated. The monks would have been able to help you with that.
This is why I came on this podcast. You've just reframed a childhood memory of mine where that's obviously what happened, and he was going to kill her again. We got to snuff this out. The Buddhists, they've only gone and brought her back, Camilla. They're never going to let us be together if she comes back as, oh, fucking pigeon. Just shut it down. And so he's clearly talking to the monks going, right, where is she? We're going to get rid of her, and you don't pull this shit again. You don't, or we'll set you on fire in that square. Yes. Like that welder with gloves. We're going to torch you up. So they were there, and we were so young that there was no sense of occasion in the room. We kind of didn't get a read on whether this was interesting, and they kind of wanted us out of there because they'd arrived to do their thing, their photo opportunity, after we left, all the kids. And so I think it was explained to me by my own mum who'd like seen it on the news that like, oh, you were in there with like Prince Charles. He's going to be the king next. And I was like, I bleed die. Yeah. I'd already picked a side. And And I was also like, at that point, like the Queen did look a lot like my grandmother. And so I kind of thought like, he can't replace grandma.
Yeah. She'll be here forever.
Because they were all getting their haircuts. Like my grandma definitely had like an Elizabeth haircut. You know,
Oh,
it was like Jennifer Aniston on Friends. Like for that generation, it's like, well, you got to get the haircut.
See, which is much more convenient because for the Jennifer Aniston generation, they had to get a picture of Jennifer Aniston go in, whereas your grandma could just get out a coin. See that? Heads. I love the heads.
Yeah, I got tails one time. It was pretty rough. You don't want that.
Oh man. So we should probably get off the Royals and back to you.
Oh my God.
When did comedy start for you? Like, was it like, did you love it growing up, or did you like, was it something you always wanted to do, or?
For sure. Like well, in terms of like wanting to do it, like I think I was just showing off a lot as a kid, which I feel is a common denominator. But then in England, I felt like it was a really good time to like grow up with the comedy that was on TV. Like I watched that show Black Books with Dylan Moran and Bill Bailey. Like we watched that so many times, and like it was a really good. I loved like. I felt like with stand-up, with like films and with TV shows, like it was all good in the UK, like for a really long time.
So what stuff? So what sort of stuff? So Black Books.
Yeah, 100%. Fucking like in terms of the movies, it was like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz were coming out when I was going through, and they had Space, like they
The
all those
Office?
shows. The Office I watched later, but I remember my parents watching it when I was a kid. Jesus. And honestly, I remember.
I just felt so old. Sorry.
But my parents would have watched it. And because it wasn't really heralded as, no one knew any of the people in the show. I'm pretty sure they watched the first episode going like, this is the craziest documentary we've ever seen. Like it wasn't necessarily marketed as this is a comedy, like mock documentary. The genre kind of didn't exist apart from Spinal Tap. And then, so it took them like a couple of episodes to be like, oh, this is
supposed to be funny.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that was awesome. And then I obviously ended up watching all of that stuff. And then stand-up, the embarrassing one is with stand-up, is because the person who really like boomed stand-up in the UK when I was growing up was the Michael McIntyre, like 3 years, where it just like turned stand-up into like the biggest show on earth. Like all the Live at the Apollo stuff, and like all these guys, they would do like 5 minutes on that show, and then 6 months later, like Kevin Bridges sold out his local arena in Glasgow to like 20,000. And it was 6 months after he'd done a 5-minute spot on like national TV. Like that's how big it was. Yeah. And so at that age, like as a teenager, you're kind of thinking like you're delusional at that point. Because you're like, well, that's kind of all it like Jack Whitehall. I didn't know at the time all the family connections he had. I thought I got this guy off the street, and now he's like selling out the O2 like 9 nights in a row. Like this kind of feels like a viable path.
My first exposure to Jack Whitehall was in what was the show? There was a show I was watching, but he played a
Fresh Meat. Is it the uni
Fresh
one?
Meat, yeah.
Yeah.
And then saw him in a couple of things, and so I didn't join the dots that he was a stand-up, and so I saw his stand-up second.
I don't think he has yet. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Nah, you know, we're having fun.
Yeah, take it.
We're having fun. That's like the reward for getting 45 minutes in. Is we'll fire a few shots. Like, well, I literally put in a group chat today. Like, he's put out a new Netflix special. I go, I'll give $20 to the person who can make it the furthest. I made it 40 seconds. I still have my $20. I still have my $20, and I'll be honest, it's safe. There's no way someone's beating me.
That's I got to be honest. It's not really my cup of tea, but you know,
I really appreciate you using English terminology to say it as well, because I believe the Australian term for that would be he's a shit cunt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's garbage. But
it's not my cup of tea.
No, but that's. I think that I'm trying to be much more conscious of that. Being like, you know what, like when stuff's big and it's popular, like whether I think it's valuable or not. If someone does, then you go, okay, well, this must have value to someone. It's just not. A lot of the stuff you can look and go, okay, that's not for me. That's not. I'm not the target audience. So you know, there's different acts I watch and I go, oh, I'm not the target audience for that, or I don't know who the target audience is for that, or that's not. But yeah, trying to be less like good versus bad. Like don't get me wrong. There's people I'll still go, that is just plain bad.
Right.
But
the interesting thing as well about it is with like a boom like that, so one guy, Michael McIntyre, it actually didn't matter what you thought about Michael McIntyre. And he was so popular that there were, of course, going to be people, especially people in comedy, being like, this is fucking lowest common denominator. But it was building up like that entire generation of comedians. We're getting full careers off the back of that exposure to the point where it's like, you kind of couldn't be mad at it because a rising tide, like lifts all boats.
Which is that now...
In a way, it wouldn't happen now. It's like the scene isn't rewarded when someone makes it big on TikTok or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. Now instead of a Michael McIntyre, there's TikTok or, online is in some ways that avenue for a lot of people to get big. And there's still people going, well, this is shit. Right. This is the lowest common denominator. This is whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting change though, because I suppose Michael McIntyre, like, there was a system like through the clubs or through the scene.
You watched him before, and you saw him at least construct an act. Like, as you say, you can watch it and like not laugh once, but if everyone else is, you hold your hands up and you go, "That's an act." Well, the guy's got an
he's
act.
doing something.
Right.
He's entertaining a room full of people, whether I agree with them or not. He's set a goal.
And sometimes you would audibly say you didn't. That's an interesting. Through a few of my sets, I think it was one at Rooty Hill RSL. I was just starting out, and Barnett will make himself known.
Yeah.
In a forum.
Everyone's laughing, but I don't agree.
Yeah. I actually think that's undercooked. You're like offering tags while I'm up there.
Not for me, thanks, Freddie.
You used my full name. Yeah. You didn't know me as Freddie at that point. You just saw the name at the back. You go, not for me, Freddie McManus. Honestly, it made me stronger. I mean, my God. And if you told that little 9-year-old boy I started young, that he'd come all the way around, full circle, and be right here. I mean, this is the moment. A single tear is about to roll down my cheek.
The problem is, this is pretty much where it ends for a lot of people. So you've peaked.
I'm feeling like a hand on my side. A people's princess is taking me by the shoulder and just leading me into what she calls the next world. Is that another podcast? Is that the other podcast?
Yeah, you'll enjoy that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like goes on forever. I heard.
It's like Rogan.
Oh, a bit of fun. I directed that one to them. Yeah, you got to give them one, You
got to. Yeah, well,
at the end of the day, this is real talk. So we're beyond reproach at this point.
Exactly. Now we are getting to close to time here, but when you did you start in the UK or here?
I started here. I actually have a story about that as well. I think I told you this the last time I saw you. There were various comedy courses in Sydney. And one of them, I'd maybe done 7 gigs total. And a certain course, like I'd performed at someone's venue, and they ran a course, and they go, "Can you be an instructor on my course this weekend? I will pay you this much." And I know when I'm qualified for something. I feel like it's one of my great strengths. Yeah. I was building my way up. I was doing that English literature degree.
Assessing welding safety gear appropriately applied in a graphic design.
100%. Right. So I feel like I know where I'm at. So I think this is probably ahead of me, but then you've got to take these opportunities, you've got to move forward. But at the same time, I feel this feels a little icky, considering I'm sure people are paying for this course and this is the professional expertise they're getting. I showed up and he said, "We have your instructor all the way from the UK. You may have seen him on Live at the Apollo." which is why I won't name the course, because that was a flat out lie. Well, I wasn't the audience. I was a big, I was front row. I think I got crowd worked in an episode once.
You may have seen them cut to him in the audience laughing at something you're at home going, "I don't agree with that."
Yeah, that was one of my many extra roles that I mentioned earlier. Is as seen on Live at the Apollo, non-speaking. I mean, I did say it. But yeah, I know, I remember thinking at the time, like, that's something you can do with comedians who start in Australia but are from other countries. You can kind of just say, like, if someone has an American accent, like, "Oh, you may have seen him on, he was on, I don't even know, like an episode of Community or something." But yeah, no, so I hadn't performed. I've only performed like a handful of times in the UK, like now, because of how rarely I've been able to go back with everything.
So is it fun going back though? Because I find, like, when you go to a city where you've never performed before and you're just in this and you drop in to do a set, because you're the new person, the expectation is so... Like, especially if you're an English person in an English room.
Right.
You're just all of a sudden, they're like...
I'm like, who, me? Like, I'm at the back,
this
like...
brand new person we've 100%. Never seen.
I ham it up. Like, I'm there at the back, they call my name, I go, "You sure? I'm just here to watch." What?
Are you looking nervous?
I bring my own mic. Like, they see me just unfurl it. By the end, I'm wearing a mink coat, like doing Def Jam walks across the stage, back and forth. There was a bit of that, but then also, like, some people in England think I kind of have a transatlantic sort of, well, not Atlantic, Pacific, whatever, like an accent that kind of merges between the two. Because I sound like a lot more English when I came here. But yeah, there's definitely a bit of that. And then what everyone says about, like, "Oh, do you have to, like, change your humor relative to the countries. It's like I was never doing bits in Australia about I'm an English person living in Australia. Like that's weird. Like you just sort of play what's in front. Like whereas if you have been a comedian in England for 3 years and you move to Australia, you think, oh, this would be a point of difference I can explore. Where for me, it's like I'd only ever done comedy here, so it was kind of like you just go like that's kind of the foreign country in a way where I hadn't like I didn't know the scene. Like I hadn't lived in the UK as an adult, and so like even like London to me now, like that's like a foreign city to me. Like obviously I know people there.
Same.
But it's like, well, there you go, mate. I mean, one of many common ground moments of this podcast. We're going to end this with like a Bra Boys handshake, but I just urging it. We're bonded by blood.
Mate, I am my open mic's keeper.
That's it. Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Mate, now, we are getting to time, but I will get you back because I actually do want to dig, because I was thinking on the way in, I know almost none of your backstory. I just started knowing you again.
That's by design, yeah.
You're one of those guys.
You're one of the scene's many creeps, I would say. So, I go, yeah, this is the mind when Barnett walks into a gig. All the people go, as in, cards close to the chest, don't reveal anything.
Yeah.
Like, you can't let Barney know anything. He'll fucking look you up and he'll find out. And so, yeah, that is by design, but it's an absolute pleasure in a public setting, which is recorded in case you do anything weird. Like, I'm happy to divulge things here. This feels like a safe space for me. And I'm okay. I'm okay letting you know little bits and pieces. And a lot of what I've said has been complete lies as well. The mystery continues.
I was going to ask you if you wanted to plug anything, where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing. But if you want to do
what,
that,
my address, you fucking creep.
If you want to do that when I leave the room.
Oh, mate, I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Are you doing festivals or whatever?
I am. Yeah, I'm doing a show at Melbourne from the 27th of March until the 6th of April. It's called Remind Me Later. It's at the Catfish in Fitzroy. So that's one. And then I'm doing 2 nights at the Enmore Wine Bar here, where you may have seen Andrew Barnett perform.
Good room.
Been there in May.
Nice.
18th and 19th, I believe. You can follow me on Instagram, Freddie McManus, the whole bit, and the dates are properly there, in case I've forgotten them. But thank you very much for having me on.
Mate, thank you so much for doing it.
Really appreciate it.
Cheers.